Hello everyone, so I'm back to make a full video for you. 2 LatumWay videos in 1 week? What the fuck? What is this video going to be about? Well, I'll tell you. A while ago, about a year and a half ago I think, I made a video entitled American Anti-Americanism. And in the comments of that video I was having an exchange with someone, and at some point in our little discussion we mentioned same-sex marriage, and I obviously said, you know, as I'm wont to do, that same-sex marriage is great, it's a good idea, and it's a civil right and everyone should have it, and it should be legal. Now, a few days ago, a guy called Averyofthemain decided to chime in and responded to what I said about gay marriage with the following. What is marriage? It's a tort contract between a man and a woman for the dispensation of property to their offspring. It is a special relationship that serves the basis of generational link to the past. This is not present in a homosexual marriage. They have no offspring. And adoption doesn't fit because single people can adopt. Therefore, gay marriage is a queer vanity issue that is reprehensible to the long-term interests of a middle-class nation. Really? Now I obviously responded with, that's bullshit, that's just flat out wrong, and there was a little bit of an exchange. I won't show it here for the sake of brevity, but I will link the comments to the Anti-Americanism video in the description so you can go and check it out for yourself. Eventually though, I managed to get this comment out of the guy. Well, a tortious act is the breaking of a contract or the doing of a civil wrong. A contract is an agreement to delineate what causes a civil wrong in the context of a relationship. Marriage is a contract whose sole authority is the dispensation of property in common law. Not love, not feelings, property. Need any more? Now, at this point, I'm not 100% sure of the concepts he's invoking. I am 100% sure that he's wrong. That I'm completely sure of. But he's using words like tortious and dispensation of property. Within a legal context, I'm not really sure what these words mean. So I decided to consult 2 friends of mine. The first is currently studying law. You may know him as Brian Tulsa. Like I said, he's still studying, he's not learnt everything, he doesn't know everything about the law yet. But I'm sure he will because he's a very, very, very intelligent guy, and the information that he did eventually give me was very helpful. But just to be sure, just to be absolutely sure that I was completely exact and precise when telling this fucker how wrong he fucking is, I decided to consult my other friend. His name is Mitch. You may know him as Prof MTH. The Prof stands for Professor. Professor of what, I hear you ask? Professor of Law! And again, the information that Mitch gave me was incredibly helpful. Really helped me to understand the issues and point out exactly where this fucker was going wrong. Now, before I actually start taking apart what this guy has said, I just want to say directly to you, Avery, I'm not doing this because I feel I owe you a response, or because I feel that you are worthy of my time or respect, or because I think that you will necessarily be persuaded by what I have to say. I'm doing this because I think that the other people who may watch this might be. Even though I will be addressing you personally, this video is really more for, you know, reasonable people. So let's begin. What is it again that this guy actually said? Marriage is a tort contract between a man and a woman for the dispensation of property to their offspring. Flaw number 1, there is no such thing as a tort contract. The 2 words don't make sense together. A tort is a harm recognised by the law as grounds for a lawsuit. A contract is an exchange of promises intended to be binding on the parties with consideration, and for the breach of which the law provides a remedy. Putting those 2 words together and saying that marriage is that makes no sense. A tort can cause a breach in a contract, but tort contracts, they aren't a thing. They don't make any legal sense. Brian said that using the term tort contract was like using the term street helicopter. Doesn't make any sense. The words don't work together. So marriage is not a tort contract, and, you know, neither is anything else. Flaw number 2. Despite what you may personally believe to be the purpose of marriage based on your religious beliefs, your traditions, culture, or politics, civil marriage has no requirement for the people involved to be able to reproduce or have any intention of doing so. Sterile people can get married. Menopausal women can get married. People who are so reluctant to have children themselves that they are almost at the point of being morally opposed to reproduction, you know, antinatalists, can get married. Simply put, there are 0 restrictions on who can marry based on whether a couple chooses to, or chooses not to, have biological or non-biological children throughout the duration of the marriage itself. It's just a simple fact that children are not a necessary component of marriage. And following on from that, thirdly, the third flaw, depending on the jurisdiction that you find yourself in, it is actually far easier to disinherit children than it is to disinherit a spouse. As I said, this varies depending on the jurisdiction, but for instance in the United States, you can disinherit your children, but you can't disinherit your spouse. I don't know about you, but this seems to suggest to me, and I don't know, maybe I'm just being kooky old Jacob here, but it would seem to suggest to me that marriage places far greater emphasis on the dispensation of property to spouses than it does to children. Like I said in the previous point, children are not part of the marriage union. Children very well may have a right to an inheritance after their parent dies, but this is based on the stipulations of their parent's will or the intestacy laws of the jurisdiction in which they reside. It's not based on their parent's marriage. So, let's review the three main problems with what he said. Firstly, tort contracts aren't a thing, they just aren't. Second, there are zero restrictions on who is allowed to form a civil marriage based on the ability to or the intention to have children. Thirdly, following on from that, the dispensation of property to children is based in wills and intestacy laws, not on the status of the parent's marriage. So all this rubbish about marriage being a tort contract for the dispensation of property to offspring and it being a special relationship that serves the basis of a generational link to the past is just flat out wrong. It's ignorant, inaccurate, and this is purely conjecture on my part, but I think that you're using a lot of these terms like tort contract and dispensation of property to make your awkward little assertions sound more valid than they actually are. And yet you still have the temerity to distill all of your crappy arguments and missteps in logic down to the conclusion that advocacy for gay marriage is nothing more than a queer vanity issue. Yeah, how vain of gay people. How utterly self-absorbed it is to want your union to be recognised with the same legitimacy and status as the unions of your heterosexual friends and family members. Jesus Christ, faggots! Get over yourselves. Well, let's end by hearing from some people who actually do know about the laws and legal terms you're attempting to invoke, shall we? Upon getting Brian, a guy who is currently studying law, to look at what you were saying, he had this to say. I don't know how else to say it. He's just wrong. He doesn't understand what he's talking about. And my friend Mitch, the professor of law, said this. In sum, your interlocutor is ignorant of how the law and marriage actually work and is, I suspect, a douche. Well, that about settles it, I guess. Frankly, Avery, you strike me as the kind of person who can't tell his own arsehole from a hole in the ground, and since this video never really was for the benefit of the kind of person who, on his own YouTube channel, describes himself as a self-writing strain of man determined to light the dark cul-de-sacs where scoundrels sit and seethe, just fuck off. Jesus Christ.